with something that just with 10 cans of food, or it's just very restricted. Sometimes it's a restricted subject. And I have one person in treatment right now whose restricted subject is one kind of farm animal. And that is just what that's...
I don't mean to laugh, but it's cute. I have 5 children, so
and it's
the idiosyncrasies are...
one kind of farm animal. They generally don't tend to engage in imaginative or make-believe play. They don't tend to share their interests. Like that one person who says, this chicken is what I'm focused on and what I find interesting. They're not going to come up and share that with you.
Well, I have a question for you on that note, because I know later when one of our parents is up, he mentioned to me during a private interview that children with autism can become very attached to certain items as well. Like any child has its security items, but then depending on what the item is, what kind of advice do you give to families on understanding that? Because some parents are not so...
Well, you just said it. You have to understand that, education of the family in the diagnosis of autistic spectrum disorders is huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much unnecessary distress placed on the child because they don't understand what's happening. I'll give you an example. And I don't want parents out there to completely freak out and say, oh my gosh, that means this is a sign of autism. But generally, let's take a rocking horse. You have a rocking horse and your kid gets on there. And 15, 20 minutes later, you sort of have to keep an eye on them because then they'll get tired of it and move on. That kid that gets on the rocking horse and 3 or 4 hours later is still, okay.
Rocking, speaking of rocking.
Yeah, that's why I picked it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
then,
I was going to say that's why I picked it because, again, we're back to those, stereotypic movements. They're more purposeless movements. I mean, it can be rocking. It can be the hand flapping we talked about. Those things... they preoccupy themselves.
I want to take you back just a little bit to the resources here.
Yeah.
Does the center have, we've talked about family, but family includes not just parents, but the other children. Do they have programs where they're educating the parents and the other siblings on how to understand and make life easier for everybody?
They do. And again, there are several programs around. But I have to admit, I'm very partial to Central California Autism Center for what they did for my immediate family and for what I see them doing on an ongoing basis. Like again, I can't give Dr. Adams enough accolades. The nice thing about the treatment community when it comes to autism is their willingness to work together. Let's say, for example, one of the things is you need a lot of resources. I mean, 40 hours of therapy a week. You need, and so a lot of times that's where Central Valley Regional Center comes in too, because they're there to treat developmental disabilities. They provide resources in a lot of ways, not to mention financial.
That was going to be, because that can cost a lot of money. So families that do and don't have insurance, I'm sure that the way that insurance companies are, everything probably is not covered. So there's going to be a financial burden one way or another.
And, it's a big enough emotional burden. And, speech therapy, unless it's Asperger's, the difference between Asperger's and autism is only that there's not a communication problem. But in autism there is, and you're looking at speech therapy as one of those issues. And then, of course, the impaired interpersonal relatedness, which is a fancy word, but I mean just the way people with autism interact with others, or I should say don't interact with others.
Right.
They don't process nonverbal communication. You and I are looking at each other. We're shaking our heads. There is a nonverbal communication taking place here that doesn't take place when
they don't understand the signs of the nonverbal communication.
They don't reciprocate emotional. You can hug someone with autism. You won't get a hug back. You'll want to shake their hand. you can tell there's not a reciprocity there.
And they also, what I learned and what I've seen is that they want to be the one initiating. If there is physical contact or, showing of love or whatever, however you want to express that, they want to be initiating it. They don't want you to come and...
Right. Well, it's because they don't know how to process what you're doing. They can't interpret what's taking place. So I would think, it's a little bit threatening.
Yeah.
So you look at that, and these, again, you'll see children with on the spectrum. They have a real hard time developing and maintaining normal peer relationships with kids at their developmental level because of that impaired interpersonal relatedness. So.
As far as suggesting there was a speaker on our program who we discussed pregnancy, and there's a lot of research going on, but they are wondering if there is a connection between during the pregnancy of lack of oxygen, of illness with the mother, of some different things. Do you have anything that you can share with us on how that might affect?
Well, I'm just from Oklahoma. So all I can go by is statistically. Statistically, the age of the mother. The older the mom, the higher the risk. Okay. Multiple pregnancies, the higher the risk. Breech presentation, C-section, the higher the risk. If you use artificial reproductive technologies, meaning like in vitro fertilization, other things to enhance fertility, those are things that increase the risk. It has been said that there are people who believe that the thimerosal and vaccinations in the past were causing it.
Right.
And there's no evidence to prove that. They point to the fact that in like 1999 there was general agreement to take thimerosal out as a precautionary measure, and they took that as an admission of guilt. But it really wasn't. It was just, saying, look, we don't know, we don't find the evidence, but since there's a certain level of concern, we can just go ahead and take it out, which is what they did.
Well, we are going to cut for commercial, and we will be back shortly discussing autism with Dr. Wajda and our parents.
This segment has been brought to you by Horn Photo in the Bellagio at River Park. For all of your photo and camera needs, go to Horn Photo in the Bellagio at River Park.
Family photos tell your stories. Faces, places, milestones, and moments. You probably meant to preserve those memories. But where are those pictures now? Hiding in boxes or inside the discoloring pages of old albums? Do you own hours of home movies and videotapes that you can't even watch? Slides and negatives that you've saved for all these years and never get to see? Think of all those precious memories that you've saved from the past to share with the future. Thanks to technology, we're taking more photos than ever, but we're not printing them like we should. Those digital images are held hostage on phones, tablets, and hard drives, leaving them as high-risk targets for accidents and hardware failure. What will happen to all of these images that tell your life story? Cherish those captured memories, not by hiding them, but by safely saving them. Put this overwhelming task on your own agenda or enlist Horn Photo's expertise. Horn Photo provides hands-on help from day one with organizing, scanning, restoring, and duplicating photographs. We can digitize your print and video memories onto DVD for easy viewing and safe, efficient storage. All you need to do is gather your prints, slides, negatives, and videos, then bring them into Horn Photo, where we will care for your cherished memories. In most cases, you can pick up your originals and your DVD within a few days. Once everything is on DVD, it's easy and affordable to order copies of your DVD for your children, siblings, and the rest of your family, so that you can share your memories with everyone. The best part is what can happen once your memories are digitized. We will show you how to transform your pictures into keepsake photo gifts and products you can enjoy for years to come. Don't wait for a disaster to destroy your collection of memories. Take steps to sort, save, and share your life in photos, whether you do it yourself or have Horn Photo help. Stop into Horn Photo and see our full range of solutions for saving and sharing your precious memories.
You can advertise your business, your product, or your event on Central Valley Talk, the Valley's only internet television station. Several of our programs are also picked up on Dish and cable networks. For the best advertising dollar, call Central Valley Talk at 579-1360.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Courageous Journeys. I have here with me today Dr. Wajda, and we're talking autism. Earlier in the program, Dr. Wajda mentioned that he has a child of his own with autism. So I did not know that. So I am going to get a little bit personal with you and ask you, what were some of the challenges that you as a family faced?
Well, you know, he came into our life, or he came into my life, I should say, at a later date. And at that point, this was at the tail end of a lot of that intensive therapy, but there were still challenges. The challenges at that time were behavioral, and thank goodness there had been many inroads made with speech.
Mm-hmm.
So
he was able to communicate better, you mean?
Yeah, and
verbally?
Very much. There were still issues, but you know, working on just picking up the mantle of behavioral intervention and carrying it forward. I have to be honest. He's great. You can, if I were to have somebody interact with him, in all honesty, at this point, it's very difficult to tell that
That's
there's
wonderful.
an issue.
I'm really more concerned about the outside environment. I mean, it's fantastic that he's made those kind of improvements and it's simplified your personal little circle, family circle. But when you were, as a family, dealing with school systems or authorities, I mean, being that you have your own practice, maybe you didn't have an employer that wouldn't, you know.
Well, again, you know, my wife is the one who had to shoulder that load before I was in the picture.
Okay.
And so, I hear the stories and they're overwhelming. And, you know, it just highlights the fact that I married one incredible individual.
That's great.
That had the ability to know priorities and had the ability to even overcome that sense of being overwhelmed in a system and say, you know what, my child comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, like I said, what she did, she championed her son, and it paid off. And I'm telling you that I look at that young man, and I'll tell you, he beat me at chess. He beat me at chess, and it wasn't. I mean, and it was with normal social interaction, and it was, you know, talking about him spontaneously, talking about. I mean, like I said, I can't emphasize enough how productive all of those early interventions were.
That's wonderful.
So
keeping being aware of those signs is critical, because the sooner you get beyond your own self or not wanting to accept, let's put it that way, because what I see repeatedly in all of us as parents is, you know, we have the best hope for our children, and we don't necessarily want to accept the fact that there might be a problem, or sometimes others are telling us, when we feel in our gut that there is a problem, they're telling us that there isn't.
Well, and it's all about, I just became aware of your background. It's all about awareness. I'm going to give you one example of a patient that was a heartbreak. You know, I think I mentioned before that, you know, you have to be very discerning about, you know, who you use in the mental health community. Mm-hmm. Make sure you want. I mean, this is extremely important. You want somebody who really knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I met with a adolescent, age 16, thereabouts, and mom had always been aware that my son, and the reason that all of these are boys that we're talking about is because autism and autistic spectrum disorders do affect boys 3 to 4 times more often than girls. And it's heartbreaking because she sought the treatment. She went to the school psychologist. They took the path of least resistance. They did the economical approach. They stuck this young man in resource classes and stuff, but he didn't get the resources that he needed. And he didn't get, the diagnosis wasn't made, the interventions weren't made, and the loss of ground, the lost opportunity is painful, absolutely painful.
It is painful, and it's painful in a lot of different issues with children when you know as a parent that, for instance, your kid might have a learning disability of any kind, and you're trying to make the teachers and the establishment understand that you need help. And it is not easy. They don't want to fill out, I'm talking from my personal experience, they don't want to fill out the paperwork and deal with it. They want to take the path of least resistance.
Right.
So what advice would you give to parents on that?
Wow. I got to say, this woman, she didn't suspect autism. She did know there was a problem, so she kept pushing. And, it should never happen that she just keeps seeking an answer and her child turns 16 before the diagnosis of autism is made. That should just never happen.
The child at 16?
Yeah, that should just never happen.
Because it's those paths of brain development and everything that happen when a child is under 5. There's really kind of, even though you can make some progress, you can't make the same kind of progress, right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
There's another resource that I found useful as far as doing research, and that is Autism Speaks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good resources on that website for a variety of things like forms and books and other links and parental family groups, right?
Oh, they're an awesome resource, and you get hooked up with them online, and they send you updates, the latest research. It's really great.
Oh, I didn't. You know what? Can anybody do that?
Sure.
Because that I didn't notice. So
Sure.
that would help me stay up to date with what's happening. So
Absolutely.
I would enjoy that. So if they were to, well, we've said that. If they're suspecting that something's wrong, finding a qualified professional to help you. Now, resources on falling, I don't know where to go.
Well, and at that point, call the Central California Autism Center.
And that website, do you have that website, by the way? Did I give you that one, Central California Autism Center? You can just Google it, and you'll find it. It's at Fresno State. So Central California Autism Center is a great resource.
And by the way, they need your support, as much as people can give, because they operate on a shoestring with a really dedicated staff, and again, they're very awesome people. And but if you suspect it, for example, CVRC, Central Valley Regional Center, they offer diagnostic services. You can, even your primary care clinician can refer you there for a evaluation.
Do they need to refer you, or can you go directly on your own?
I believe you can give them a call, and like I said, if you call them, these people are going to help you. They're going to tell you this is the process, this is what you need to do. Reach out. Because there are resources out there. But again, like I said, this one patient that I ran into, we're trying to play catch up now. We're looking at, you can ask, well, what might have been, but that's a waste of time.
It is.
Now we've just got to go forward with where we're at and and work at it the best we can. And, a lot of times you get adults that slip through the cracks, and they wind up coming in and you diagnose Asperger's or pervasive developmental disorder or autism. And at that point, those people who slip through the cracks can still be evaluated at the regional center.
Okay.
And once it's identified, because if the regional center says, wow, there is a developmental disability here, well, it was there. Or I should say pervasive developmental disorder, it was there way back when it should have been identified. So yes, they're eligible for services. They're eligible to be a client.
And then they can be directed through the regional center.
Absolutely. They can get the therapy that they need because, I mean, let's face it, they do need to work on social reciprocity, social interaction. There's still many things to be worked on. And I have to say, right here at the tail end of my segment, transcranial magnetic stimulation has shown a significant benefit experimentally with people that have Asperger's.
Now you're doing some of that at your firm, aren't you?
We do that, and you can even on YouTube. There's some awesome before and after videos of people with Asperger's, and they're not making eye contact with the camera. You can tell that even the prosody of their speech is off, and that meaning like the rhythm and the style of their speech. They're having a hard time communicating. You can tell that their interpersonal relatedness, even with the person interviewing them on camera, is impaired. They're talking about some of the restricted interests they have and so on and so forth. They go through transcranial magnetic stimulation, and then the after video, and you're like, oh my gosh, the person's engaged in the camera. They're looking, they're talking to people. Everything about their speech and manner is completely different.
That's fantastic. I'm going to look up those and bring them onto another program and have it come in so we can see some of the changes.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, Dr. Wajda. I have one last question for you. I found interesting the 100-day toolkit, which is it's giving advice to parents who've just had their child diagnosed with autism. Do you have any other resources in the way of books that you would say if they're suspecting, because some people aren't necessarily going to jump on the phone and go to the regional center. First, they kind of want to convince themselves.
Well, go to Autism Speaks. I mean, you know what? I don't want to single out any one book. You know what? Books anymore, trying to get somebody to read a book is trying to get getting them to pay a bill on time. It just ain't going to happen.
That's sad.
But,
That's true.
Everybody has internet access. And I don't mean to sound condescending when I say that. I mean, I have people who come in and they're like, Doc, I'm on disability and I'm getting $10 a week, but look at my new iPhone. So they have access, and they can go to Autism Speaks, and that's an awesome
resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Wajda. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You
and
too.
We're going to cut for commercial. Be right back.
This segment is brought to you by Corrine Hatfield of Platinum Mortgage. If you are thinking of purchasing a new home or refinancing an existing home, call Corrine Hatfield at 917-7111.
Watch Tim Thiessen live Wednesdays at 3 p.m. right here on CentralValleyTalk.com and on digital channel 33.2. If you missed the live broadcast, we're on every Wednesday night at 11 p.m. on Comcast channel 200 and digital channel 43.5. You don't want to miss this.
Hey Central Valley, this is Chuck Leonard. Starting in September, I'll be on KAIL, my 7.1. Let's go out in the Tower District and see what people think.
Chuck Leonard, I saw that guy in a tour bus with Eddie Money.
Chuck Leonard, that guy's been building himself up for years.
Chuck Leonard, hey, why you gotta hassle me, man?
Central Valley Buzz with Chuck Leonard, starting September 16th on KAIL, my 7.1. That Men's Alley, Hungry Howie's, and Scoops Ice Cream. Tower Health Food, Samba Steakhouse, Mike Briggs Properties. There's Tower Market, Farmers Market too. Kuka's and Landmark, Mr. Sushi for you.
1, 2, 3.
I shop Tim's Trolley, Palominos, Spinner's Records, Tower Bike Shop, Irene's To Go, Bobby Sal's Restaurant, The Perfect Blend and Million Elephant, H&R Block, Starbucks Coffee, PM on Teas, Roger Rocca's Dinner Theater,
the second space. Tower tattoos, Lottie in the me and Ed's is the place. International furniture, the review cafe. Teasers Realty Market, Love Oak knows the way. Typhoon Restaurant, the Game Preserve, and Bia Bay. Sequoia Brewing, Russo Restaurant, Tower Clocks today. Come to the tower, there's so much fun for everyone. Every morning, every evening, ain't we got fun?
CentralValleyTalk.com.
This camera.
Okay.
Hi, and welcome back to Courageous Journeys. I have the beautiful mother here with me, Renatta Carter Ford. We were having too much fun during the break. So, Renatta, how many children do you have?
I have 2. I have a daughter who's 9 and a son who's 8.
And so which child is autistic?
That would be my son Roman.
Okay, so I got mixed up, and there's 2 parents with 2 sons,
Yeah.
which kind of reiterate what Dr. Wajda said about statistics, I guess, huh?
Yes, definitely.
So, Renatta, how early on did you realize that your son was showing signs of autism or had some difficulties?
I think I first realized when Roman was around 2. I was watching an episode of Oprah, and they were coincidentally covering autism, and I was just totally into the show. And I started looking at different behaviors in him, such as avoiding eye contact, and he would play with his toys, but he'd always want to play with by himself.
It was not interaction.
He was not interacting with his sister very much. And whenever he was obsessed with horses. He loves animals. And he would line his horses up in a row. And initially I thought, okay, well, maybe that's just how he played. And he'd be across the room playing with something else, and I would turn one of the horses around to see, and he would stop what he was doing. He'd run back. He'd turn it back. He'd notice right away. He'd come back. He'd turn it back around. And he'd just kind of give me a look.
Like, what are you doing?
Exactly, like, leave it alone. And he'd go back to playing. And I thought, okay, this is
a little odd.
A little odd, yeah. I went to his pediatrician, and his sister is just 18 months older than he is. And a lot of the things that she was doing at certain milestones, he's not doing. And I'm noticing different behaviors, and right away the pediatrician dismissed it. Oh, don't worry about it.
That's what worries me.
Yeah, he kept telling me, don't worry about it. Boys develop differently than girls do. It's just, it's just the way that boys develop.
Had you already seen the Oprah show when you went to your pediatrician?
Yes.
So did you bring up some of those red flags to him?
I did. I told them about him not talking as much as his sister did. And I kept comparing him to his sister because they're so close in age. And the pediatrician just kept saying, boys develop differently than girls. Don't worry about it. He'll be fine. Then when I went back in closer to him turning 3, that's when his doctor started asking me questions, saying, well, is he speaking in sentences? How much is he talking? What is he doing?
He started noticing
the differences. And that's when he referred me out to say, I think that we should have him evaluated for autism.
And where did he refer you to?
CVRC.
The regional?
The regional center. Central Valley. Okay, Central Valley Regional Center. Yes.
Okay. And how did you find that experience with working with them?
Initially, I have to say, when I first went in, it was pretty much traumatic. I went in to have him assessed, and he was asleep when we got there because it wasn't on time. And so we went into a room. There were 5 or 6 people in a room, different psychologists, nurses,
that's
people from different fields. Yes, they had me wake him up, and there's this group of people around who he's never seen before saying, "Play with me."
Traumatic,
Yeah,
especially
so-
for a child with autism.
Exactly. I mean, I would have been traumatized if somebody woke me up like that. It's a stranger saying, "Play with me, do this, do that." So, but they had me wake him up, and they're telling me, have him go up and down the stairs, have him do this, do that, and they're wanting him to do certain things, stack the blocks. Well, these are all things that he knew how to do. We had stairs at home, so naturally he knew how to go upstairs. But because he didn't know these people, he's clinging to me, and he's not wanting to do a lot of these things.
And he just woke up.
And he had just waken up from a nap. And so they had us leave out of the room. They met, called me back in, and your son has autism. He won't do this. He won't do that. He'll never do this. He'll never do that.
He'll never?
Never, or it's,
that's pretty
don't
extreme
count
words.
on it. These are things that he's not going to do. It wasn't an experience to say that he's being diagnosed with this, but we can work, these are things you can work on to help improve. It was basically, these are things that you shouldn't even expect your child to do.
Don't have false hope.
Exactly. Don't have false hope.
So on that, even though I didn't warn you on this question, on hope and having faith and getting through that, where did you find your strength?
I found my strength in God. I left that meeting, and of course I was just, I don't even remember the drive home. I was just in a total daze. But myself being a woman of faith and being a fighter, and I thought, I'm not going to give in to this. My son will do.
He will.
He will.
And did they right away direct you to the central? See, I'm terrible at this.
No.
Okay.
They did
so tell
not.
me that.
And
I'm
that's
sorry,
why I
didn't
tell
mean
you,
to cut
I have to say that this was all in God's plan, because my daughter was enrolled in the preschool at Fresno State.
Oh.
And she was only there for a month. I had taken off work one day to go pick her up early, and I started seeing the signs for the Autism Center.
They had like, you mean signs on the
just,
campus?
Signs downstairs in the education building where they're located, just posted along the wall, Central
Thank
California
God.
Autism Center. And I started seeing, I'm going to see what this is about. I went into the office, and they hadn't been started up long, and I started asking questions about the Autism Center, and they told me about it. I got put on the list for enrollment. And that's why I say it was God's will, because when I went there to pick up my daughter, I was going to take her out of that preschool because I was enrolling her somewhere else. And it's just,
it was serendipitous by,
exactly.
like you said, God was leading you
God
to
was leading
help.
me to help, because my daughter I was taking her out of that program at Fresno, the preschool program, but then I saw these signs for my son, and right away was able to get him in.
That's great.
So
I love hearing that, and that's why I know I hadn't warned you of that, but I wanted to throw that in there, because that's, the signs. A lot of people look at me and think I'm nuts, but God does speak to us and does lead us into the path of finding help and learning from our experiences. The initial emotional and psychological difficulties that your family, because you said your daughter's only 18 months older, but fortunately, so when you went to take your daughter out of daycare, how old was your son when you first started going to the center?
It was right before he turned 3.
Right before he turned 3.
Yes.
So in working with, and I'm sorry if this is personal, but were you married at the time?
Yes.
Okay. So in working with your husband and the father of your children and your other child, what kind of difficulties were you having?
Basically, it was initially after he got diagnosed, we were sent over to Exceptional Parents Unlimited, EPU, because he was 2.5, and so that was the first resource that the option we were given. And so he was only there for a short period of time. But I was working, my husband had more of a flexible schedule, so he would take my daughter, I don't think she was in school at the time, or she was in a half-day preschool maybe, and so we would all go to EPU. I would take off work whenever my son had sessions. That was my priority, and so I would take off work, and we would go as a family over for his sessions, and afterwards, we would just basically try to handle it as a family unit.
So your daughter was there too.
My daughter
so that's
was
a
there,
blessing
too.
because she's learning while she's watching them work with him. I would
Exactly.
assume, right?
She's learning, and at the same time, she's interacting with other children with disabilities at EPU because it was a group setting.
Right.
So she's seeing other children, and then I also had my daughter at Break the Barriers.
I was kind of just figuring out Break the Barriers.
I had her enrolled there. She was taking ballet and dance there.
That's a wonderful program.
And so she's become familiar with being around children with disabilities and working with children and just, it's just become a part of our life. It's a norm for us.
So she's more understanding. But
Yes.
that's a wonderful program, and it is because they do mix children of all capabilities, all learning situations, and not only does it help those that are really working to improve their communication skills or their physical, but the children that don't have any disabilities whatsoever become so much more understanding and less prejudiced, and they are our future.
Yes.
And they will guide us to a better understanding. That's my feeling. So don't want to get too emotional on here, but it's true.
Yeah. And I have to say that my daughter has been one of the best teachers that my son could have, because she is a total advocate for her brother. She has learned about autism. She explains what autism is to her friends and to different people. And she just knows that this is how her brother is, and if he happens to have an outburst or something takes place with her brother, when we first started going to the church where we are, he would have outbursts. And she would just go to her friends, and I'm seeing this little person talking, saying, my brother has autism, and he doesn't always understand what's going on.
Because she didn't want them to bully him or make fun of him out of their misunderstanding the situation.
And even on the playground, she didn't want people to think that he was being defiant or, want people to be mean to him because of, things that he didn't understand what he was doing. And even with school, she helps him with his homework now. She'll teach him things when they had to learn to sit crisscross. I wasn't going to get on the floor and do crisscross because I probably couldn't get back up. But that's things that she would teach him. She's like, okay, Roman, come on, this is how you do it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it's great. They have a very good relationship.
Your mom is very proud of you if you watch this later, both of you. Thank you so much for your honesty and being transparent with us on your own feelings and experiences, because I think it's important. I know a lot of people who suffer, they suffer judgment and they suffer some self-imposed shame of the situation, and it's very hard. It can be very hard.
It is. It's a hard thing, and what I've learned, and I have to say I'm very blessed to have had Roman go through the Autism Center at Fresno State, because they not only treat the child that's there, they help the whole family. They help to educate me, they help to educate my daughter. They have just family groups or sibling sessions where they come in.
That's what I was asking. Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Where they work with the siblings and have the siblings come in, because I forgot the doctor's name that was ahead of me.
Dr. Wajda.
I didn't want to mess up his name. But like he was saying, with families getting involved, when Roman was first diagnosed, Azaria would go to the family sessions, and they would play, and they would teach her how to deal with Roman, or how to, if he was having a tantrum, how to calm him, and different things like that. So, and even educating her, like I said, how to speak about autism. She spoke at different events that they've had on.
Oh, didn't you tell me once that your daughter and you spoke on?
Yes.
Okay.
They had a forum I want to say it was probably in May, and my daughter spoke about what it's like to have a sibling with autism. And just God's grace, she asked me about her speech. Should I write something down, Mom? What should I do? And I said, it's up to you, however you want to put it. She said, you know what? I'm just going to speak from my heart.
Aw.
She's old beyond
She's
her
going
years.
to be doing her own show here real soon.
She'll be here soon.
Yeah.
But it's things like that I really enjoyed about that program. Is, like I said, they involve the whole family. They're not just treating him, they're treating all of us.
Yeah, which is
important.
important.
Or helping all of us, should I say.
Yeah,
It doesn't
helping.
even feel like a treatment.
Living with. And,
yeah, exactly. And I was going to say something else about the autism, but I think for my experience, initially it was tough, and I think for every parent, you go through all those emotions of denial and what did I do wrong and all of this, and then you learn to accept, and you learn that for me, it was a matter of not trying to put him on my program, but more so how to incorporate the two. Because one thing about with my son and most children with autism, they're a little different in their own ways, is that you can't really, like most children, sit there, don't do this, don't move, don't do that. And they're kind of looking like, really? Yeah, don't move? Okay, I'm out of here. And you just have to learn how they learn, what helps them to learn, and you work with that and incorporate that into your
trying different techniques. Well, we unfortunately have to wrap it up for commercial, but I'm so grateful that you were able to come in this morning, and I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Renatta.
All right.
Take care. We'll be right back.
This segment has been brought to you by Own a Car Fresno.
Ag is a vital part of the economy here in the Central Valley. Hi, I'm Ty Simpson, sales manager of the new Bland Solar office here in Clovis. And if you're in the ag industry, you've probably given thought to solar. Whether you run a dairy, orchard, farm, or ranch, at Bland Solar, we can custom design a system that's perfect for your business. The fact is that in this economy, replacing high-cost utility power with solar power is a great way to improve your bottom line. Bland Solar looks forward to serving the residents of the Central Valley. So call us today at 554-5657. Bland Solar, the Valley's expert in solar.
Family photos tell your stories. Faces, places, milestones, and moments. You probably meant to preserve those memories. But where are those pictures now? Hiding in boxes or inside the discoloring pages of old albums? Do you own hours of home movies and videotapes that you can't even watch? Slides and negatives that you saved for all these years and you never get to see? Think of all those precious memories that you've saved from the past to share with the future. Thanks to technology, we're taking more photos than ever, but we're not printing them like we should. Those digital images are held hostage on phones, tablets, and hard drives, leaving them as high-risk targets for accidents and hardware failure. What will happen to all of these images that tell your life story? Cherish those captured memories, not by hiding them, but by safely saving them. Put this overwhelming task on your own agenda or enlist Horn Photo's expertise. Horn Photo provides hands-on help from day one with organizing, scanning, restoring, and duplicating photographs. We can digitize your print and video memories onto DVD for easy viewing and safe, efficient storage. All you need to do is gather your prints, slides, negatives, and videos, then bring them into Horn Photo, where we will care for your cherished memories. In most cases, you can pick up your originals and your DVD within a few days. Once everything is on DVD, it's easy and affordable to order copies of your DVD for your children, siblings, and the rest of your family, so that you can share your memories with everyone. The best part is what can happen once your memories are digitized. We will show you how to transform your pictures into keepsake photo gifts and products you can enjoy for years to come. Don't wait for a disaster to destroy your collection of memories. Take steps to sort, save, and share your life in photos, whether you do it yourself or have Horn Photo help. Stop into Horn Photo and see our full range of solutions for saving and sharing your precious memories.
Hey everybody, let's have some fun. You only live once, and when you get it done, so let the good times roll.
Watch Mike and Athena Fridays at 1 p.m. on CentralValleyTalk.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com. Hi, and welcome back. I have with me here today a loving father, Will Magee, and he has a son with autism. Will, now, we were discussing when Renatta was here during the interview that she also has a daughter, and I learned that you have a daughter as well, right?
Yes, Romance.
Now, Romance. And what's your son's name?
William.
Well, oh, yeah, that's right. Now, who's older and who's younger?
William's older. He'll be 8 on the 16th of next month, and Romance is 6.
They're beautiful children. I did have a chance to meet them. Now, in working with, okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. to your first experience with becoming aware that your child has autism, at what age did you start noticing?
About age 3. I would say 3.5 because I was in denial for about half a year for sure. But he had met all his milestones, and he was talking and everything. But when he turned 3, it was like he was 18 months again.
Oh, so he did the backtracking
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And so that was just threw up red flags, and the doctors would be like, like you said, they age different, they mature differently, and things like that. But it wasn't going there, and he didn't really flap or do the spinning thing. And even still now, he's high on the spectrum. So it was really hard for me. I was in denial definitely because you don't want your kid to be wrong.
I do understand, but when you noticed that he was regressing in his development, you went to your regular physician, or where did you guys seek help?
Well, thank God we had Kaiser, and Dr. Graves, pediatrician over there, he was real good. He was the one that pushed. He wanted us to go there's a autism center for Kaiser in Northern California, and he wanted in Rancho Cordova actually, and he wanted us to go over there to get assessed.
Or did you fight that at first?
I didn't fight it. It was a lengthy trip, and just at the time we just weren't financially able to get over there. Right. So the next route was to go to CVRC.
And finances and dealing with employers. When we had our own private interview, you shared with me some of those difficulties. So as a father, everybody, mothers unfortunately are quite often expected to take the weight of the world on their shoulders when it comes to the family, right? But I'm really proud of you that you have stepped up as a father, but you've had challenges with that. So you want to share some of that with us?
I've had managers that are just not, they don't care that you have a child that's handicapped, and I mean I'll work sick, injured, hurt. But when it comes to my kids, like I can't get more kids. I can get another job. Mm-hmm. And there was an instance where my son had to have surgery, and I went to work. It was all known about. I went to his surgery. Even after his surgery, I went and got his medicine, dropped him off, and I went to work. I didn't have to go to work that day, but I still went to work. Just so I'm here.
Did your duty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, a month later, I get a write-up. And I'm like, what is this for? Oh, because you missed work that day. That was a month ago, almost a month ago, and it was for my son's surgery. I had a doctor's note, and I came to work that day. And so it was more like a personal vendetta because I called human resources, and they threw it all out. But to have to go through that with your immediate supervisor and then go to work the next day.
It's very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you have to then look at yourself and say, how am I going to react to this situation? Mm-hmm. Because it's easy to get angry or whatever, but that's not always going to behoove you, right?
Or what's going to happen next week if something else happens, because
right.
That's I have an unpredictable life with handicap.
And your wife and the mother of your children, what are some of the things that she's come across as?
She's come across you have to almost lie about some things, honestly, because certain diagnoses, like the Asperger diagnosis, there's no services for. Mm-hmm. And they'll tell you that, because I've gone into meetings and I'm getting kicked under the table because they're saying, can your son do this? Can your son do that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, he can do those things. But if you say no,
right.
or if you say yeah, then
you're eliminated
services.
From certain services. That's extremely sad, and that's pretty much the state of our mental health here in the U.S. With mental health issues across the board, it's really hard to get help.
Yeah. So we struggle with that, and then getting into intensive therapy. For years, they bid around the bush. They sent
Is he in intensive
now
therapy?
Finally he's in intensive
So when
therapy.
was he able to finally access those resources?
About a year and a half ago.
Oh.
Yeah. But through
and
the
he's
grace
7.
Being now.
I'm glad to hear that. Definitely. Even though it was caught later, it is working. Are you going also to where are you going as a family to get that intensive?
They actually come to my house every day in the afternoon after he gets out of school. Yeah, so it's a long day for him, but
it makes it easier as a family too,
Absolutely.
especially when both parents are trying to work, and
right.
there's always those challenges of paying the bills.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. You want to put your child first, but there are times where we struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
To pay the bills as well. What advice would you have to give to our viewers out there if they have a child and they're noticing some of these things? What would you say to them?
I'd say just humble yourself and seek help. Don't do like I did and be in denial for 6 months and not want to do it, because the earlier the better. And you might be right, so it doesn't hurt to go and have them assessed.
Right.
And
Doesn't
just
hurt
to see,
anything.
you know what I mean? It doesn't, you're not admitting that your son or your child or your daughter has a handicap by going to get these assessments. It's just preventive measures.
So listen to his words of advice there, and don't blame yourself. I would throw that out there, because quite often we as parents want to blame ourselves for all the things that go wrong.
Right.
And you're doing the best you can do, right?
Yeah, and with autism diagnosis, with it being new, they're going to throw so many different things at you of why it's that way. So you just have to do your own research. And
what I tell my friends on a lot of different issues is stop worrying about the why and focus on where we're going to go from here,
right,
and getting the help you need. Thank you so much, Will,
no
for
problem. Thank you
having
for
a
having
dad's point of view on here. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And hopefully we'll have some more parents come back and talk about autism. So
Hopefully.
have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week here on Courageous Journeys.
This segment has been brought to you by Horn Photo in the Bellagio at River Park.